Welcome, councillors, to our meeting tonight. May I first make an acknowledgement of country. When I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, I humbly pay my respects to the people of the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal nations, their past, future and emerging elders, and I respect their continuing connection to the country. A few housekeeping rules. If you're asked to evacuate, the emergency procedure is to exit via the door leading out of the building directly outside the council chambers and proceed to the footpath opposite the council chambers and await further instructions. This council is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with council's live streaming and council meeting policy. And for those present in the gallery, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The Chair and or the General Manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. And attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in an inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. This afternoon we have nobody in the public forum, so we'll continue on. For any apologies, no apologies. I think everybody is here either in the chamber or via Zoom. And I don't think there are any applications, are there, to leave absence? Thank you. All right, now everybody, I ask that staff and members of the council be upstanding for a minute's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of the following of our community. Kevin Long, Robert Frost, Concertina Bongiano, Gavin Dovey, Peter Waters, George Harris, Craig Sheehan, John Sweeney and Ronald Clark. Thank you, councillors. Now, if we turn to number 6, confirmation of minutes, 6/22/01, 6.1. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Piper. Seconder? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Any comments? All right, I'll move it. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. If we move then to, pardon me, I'll just skip to page. Thank you. All right, page 26. Any disclosures of interest? No, thank you. There isn't a mayoral minute. And the next one is my mayoral report. I'd just like to comment, I think, on the Cootamundra Electorate Summit with the Honourable Steph Cook MP. The General Manager and I attended that, and it was a good opportunity for all the new mayors to meet and to make connections, especially with those LGAs that are bordering on Hilltops. And we even have plans in the future that those mayors in particular will sit down at fairly regular intervals just to discuss anything that might be of mutual interest to us. So I think that's a very positive step. Also, I'd just like to thank all of you for stepping in for the week where you'll notice that I didn't do very much. And what I did was by phone or by Teams, and the dreaded COVID finally caught up with me. So I thank everybody for their help and their positive contribution. And I will assure you that I have tested 3 times and I am at the moment free of COVID. So if we move on to councillor reports. Oh yes, pardon me. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Houston. Those in favour? Anybody against? No, thank you, unanimous. Right, we'll move on to 10.1, councillor meetings attended. Can I have a mover?
One adjustment, I forgot to enter into mine that I attended the Anzac Day ceremonies at Arden and the one at Murrumburrah as well.
Certainly, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald.
I'll happily move it.
Move it, and yes, I think I'll go around the councillors, and so when it's your turn, if you like to add those, okay. I'm sure Deirdre will. But I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Now, Councillor Armstrong, you have written down your engagements. Have you anything more to add?
A number of constituent interviews, mainly by telephone, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Mary Dodd. Thank you. And Councillor Fitzpatrick, you have the odd one or two to add, is that right?
I assume you're addressing me. Fitzgerald.
Oh, Fitzgerald. I'll put it down to COVID.
Okay.
They say it affects your brain, so.
Apart from the 2 Anzac Day ceremonies, nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And Councillor Foreman?
I also attended Anzac Day in Marengo.
Thank you. And Councillor Ingram?
Meetings as minuted, and I attended the February Anzac March.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say again, thank you to all the councillors who did go out to our far-flung villages on Anzac Day. I know it was appreciated. Councillor Hewson, you'd like to add something to your list? Okay, thank you. And Councillor Mackie?
I wanted to add, I wasn't to be at the BOOROWA Anzac March, but I ended up not going to Braidwood, so I was at the BOOROWA 10:30 March. I did notice that some people attended Anzac Day on the 26th of April. Is that a bit of a typo?
I think it might be a typo.
Mm.
Yes. And Councillor Piper, and then we'll move to the others. Councillor Piper, would you like to give us a report on what?
The Tilt WINDFARM gas, I've said about CCC meeting. 4 meetings with local members.
Excuse me, Councillor Piper. It's now on the screen. Is that as minuted, as noted?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Constituent meetings and Anzac ceremony at Geelong and Hilltops ordinary meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Stadmiller.
What have I got? 3 Anzac Day services, ordinary council meeting now, and then on behalf of Goldenfields, Rivjo and Re-Rock meeting. That's about it, meetings as minuted.
Thank you, Councillor. If we move on to 11, Community Recognition Scheme. Councillors, anybody like to put anybody forward? Councillor Foreman.
Yes, I would. Firstly, I'd like to commend everybody that held, all the towns that did hold really good Anzac services this year. But in particular, I would like to put down Major Philip Mitchell He is the Officer Commanding Major Mitchell of the 200 ACU. The ACU stands for the Australian Cadet Union, which I didn't know, so there you go. He personally attended 8 Anzac Day ceremonies, also holds the school services, the Sonic Lodge services, which are not held on Anzac Day. He also helps with COURRY, WOMBAT and other services, and he also looks after the whole of Young, BOOROWA and COURRY units, and he oversees all 3, but he directly runs the Young unit. He coordinated Anzac Day for Young and others, and it takes him from the previous November to Anzac Day to actually coordinate all that, and he did an amazing job, and he pulled it together very, very well. So I'd like to put him into the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Any other? Do I have a mover for the recognition? Thank you, Councillor Piper. A seconder? Councillor Plummer? Those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
We had a mover and a seconder for the councillor reports. I don't believe it actually went to a vote.
Oh, pardon me. I stand corrected. Can I have...
The mover was Councillor Fitzgerald and the seconder was Councillor Dodd. And to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to 12, General Manager's Reports, and 12.1, the additional special variation. The recommendation is before you. Would somebody like to move motion so we can open discussion? Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Second, Councillor Hewson. Mr. General Manager, would you like to say anything on this?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. As articulated in the report, the IPART, the Independent Pricing Authority, deigned to set an increase of 0.7% as the rate cap. There was considerable concern raised by local government in general. The Honourable Wendy Tuckerman, MP Minister for Local Government, heeded those concerns, and what is before you is the options for council to vote to apply for a additional special variation, which would take the 0.7% to 2.5%. That would mean an additional $250,000 odd, as per stated in the recommendation. And as the recommendation is we believe, given our financial circumstances, as articulated and shown in the long-term financial plan that formed part of the budgets, that we are still in that financial position. So we had budgeted for 2.7% in the mix, and later scenarios we had budgeted for 2.5%, and that seemed to be the consensus budgeting amount. So it was with some surprise that 0.7% was the calculated amount by the independent tribunal. So this is an opportunity for us to take it to what we had budgeted for, and many other councillors, dare I say, had budgeted for. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Any comments?
Madam Mayor,
Queries? Yes.
I think it's
Councillor.
a no-brainer. As the General Manager's stated in the report and his presentation tonight, the Council had worked on 2.7 when they were doing the financials. Everyone was gobsmacked when it came out at 0.7%, and that's been addressed now, and I think it's a bit of common sense, and yeah, I think it's a matter of just Council taking this on board and voting it in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram, and I certainly concur with your comments. It brings us really back just to status quo, doesn't it? So, no further comments, queries. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Oh, no, pardon me. Those against? Councillor Stadmiller. Thank you. We'll move on to 12.2, 2205, the Cash and Investment Report, 31st of March 2022. The recommendations there that we receive the statement of cash and investments as at the 31st of March 2022. Can I have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. A seconder? Councillor Dodd. Thank you. Any comments, queries, questions?
Yeah, just a question. On page 42, financial implications, dot point 3, about the breaches from T Corp. Just a bit of an explanation on that one, please. Just for my information.
Just go to page 41 and you'll see there the second listed AMP Bank. There's an A2 rating, and as a result, you'll notice that the interest rate is higher than most of the other investments there, apart from that NAB Bank at the bottom. So T Corp, because it was a lower rating, T Corp asked that we actually reinvest that. So that was then replaced on the 2nd of May and the 18th of May with NAB Bank. If you look on that schedule down there, T Corp obviously have some strict protocols in terms of who we invest with and whether they're actually AAA rated. So that's a comment. So that's been addressed. We addressed that with T Corp.
Thank you, CFO, for that clarification. If we move on to 12. Oh, pardon me. We need to vote. All right. Those in favour? Those against? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So now we can move on to 12.3, 2206, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. And the recommendation is to receive and note the report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller, and a seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Any questions, queries?
Just one or two, if that's okay, for the Chief Financial Officer through you.
Yes, Councillor.
When you look at the rates and charges for those overdue 1 to greater than 5 years, in each of the 3 things on pages 44 and 45, they're 20% of the overdue is in that section, whereas with the sundry debt it's only 17%, which is very similar, but it's almost double that in the water charges. Is there a comment you'd like to make on that?
We are looking at
yes.
So we are looking at actually then I've got to spend a fair bit of time on these outstanding debtors and actually working our way through some of the common ratepayers who, since this has been produced, one of the $39,000 water rates was received last week.
All right.
Yeah, but I'm actually pursuing another quite big outstanding debt there and working my way. There's quite a few debtors here outstanding. Those in the overdue 5 years, we've got those and we're taking those on board. And if some of them are difficult properties, if appropriate, that list that you voted on last year will go back to our outstanding debt collections. If necessary, we'll then go to another sale of the property. But we need to do a bit of work actually following these people up because they're getting long in the tooth. You know, it's cash not in the bank. So we've got a bit of work to do.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We have a combination of ratepayers and a combination of other debtors.
Yep.
Within that profile.
Okay. Can I ask you just a question which might seem trivial? Off the top of your head, can you give me an estimate of the number of water rates bills that go out that have a zero?
Take that on notice and provide that to
Yeah, I'm just interested, that's all.
Sure. In terms of zero bill.
A zero bill, yep. Okay, thanks, Norm.
Thank you. Yes, I've just been reminded to put it to the vote. So those in favour, if you'd like to raise your hands. And I think it's unanimous again. Thank you. I'm even being reminded to say thank you. So thank you, Mr. GM. All right, 12.4, 2207, and that's the draft code of meeting practice. And the recommendation is that Council receive and note the report, approve the draft code of meeting practice to be placed on public exhibition for 28 days with changes endorsed.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was an anomaly where it is a 28-day exhibition period. However, the recommendation as it currently reads now in point C is that if there are no submissions received, adopt the Council's Hilltops Code of Meeting Practice at the completion of the 42-day submission period. So there is the exhibition period of 28 days, and then the public have a further 14 days, a further 2 weeks to provide their submissions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so what you're saying together, it comes to that 48.
Correct.
42. Do I have a mover for the recommendation?
Fine. Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Do we have a seconder? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Fundamentally, I don't have any issues with the proposed changes. However, 4.5 and 4.8, I would like to suggest those figures be dropped back to 2 items, a maximum of 2 items per speaker, and a maximum of 2 speakers permitted for or against. That would my reasoning for that would be that it would bring the number of speakers into line with the rules of debate for a council meeting.
Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Well, anybody like to make comment on? Councillor Don.
I have a question. So lost the word. The different sections where it says choose one or the other. So do we need to choose that now? So for example, 3.1 and 3.2, where it says you need to choose 3.1 and 3.2. Do we need to do that, or does it all just go out on exhibition and then it happens afterwards?
So the construct of the report is following what you see in red is where a decision is being made by council, and there's a recommendation in there as what is current, and each area in red says currently included. So it is no different to the current code of meeting practice. It's just the Office of Local Government has said this is an optional type part. The previous council decided, yes, that should be part of it. It may have been mandatory before, but it is now optional. It's irrelevant whether it was mandatory, it is now optional, so you vote on that. What councillors are voting on today is what is put out on public exhibition. So you're not deciding on the code of meeting practice proper today. The areas that, for instance, if we were to adopt the resolution as is, council staff would have read 4.5 as councillors have said 3, because the amendment that Councillor Armstrong has put forward on 4.5 and 4.8, he's put forward and seconded by Councillor Ingram that it should be 2. And that is just the proposal to put out for public exhibition. So the public can comment upon that. If we receive any submissions, we then bring this back to council. It will be the June meeting for you to then vote upon the actual code of meeting practice. What you're voting on today is just what is going on public exhibition. So when you say that either or, yes, the decision today is you need to make a decision today as in what do you want to go out today. That's not to say should a public submission come in or you consider it and you put forward, no, I'd rather revert to the other alternative. That will come at a later meeting should a submission be received.
So for example, for that 3.1 and 3.2, will it both go out when it says councils must use either clause 3.1 or 3.2? Or
No, what
because at the moment they're actually both in our current one, and we should just have one.
yes. Yep, so you make the decision today to say, well, we can choose either or.
So does all that go in that one amendment if Brian and Greg are happy with it? Councillor Ingram and Councillor.
Yeah. So should the mover and the seconder agree with your suggestion that 3.1 or 3.2 be placed on public exhibition as part of the two, and that's on the basis that you are also saying that you're okay with two, other than you would need an additional amendment separate to if you had a view on that, or any other councillor has a view on that. But so, councillor, what are you moving? Are you saying 3.1 or 3.2 for the consideration of the mover and seconder?
I would like to say 3.2 because I think it would be simpler then that if we wanted to change it in the future, it's just done by resolution. And I'm assuming that we would still do it for a year in advance or whatever, but that it would just be simpler then if it was just by council resolution rather than having to change the code of meeting practice.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Ingham, you've got your light on. You'd like to make?
I won't accept that.
You won't accept that? Okay.
I'll be moving for 3.1. They're currently set. As they're set now for a determined Wednesday in each month, and everyone knows where it's set, when they're on, what time, what dates they're on, and there's no confusion. You start setting them every second meeting. I can see what happened, but I won't accept that into the First Amendment. So
from a procedural point of view then, if you'd like to once this amendment's been dealt with, you can move a further, the amendment to move it to 3.2, and then the vote will happen on that, on what goes in. So at this point of the process, if there's any further comment upon the two items that Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Ingram put forward, that can be voted upon and that can be resolved, and then you can move an amendment.
Okay.
If so be.
Because
I thought that's what we had on the agenda at the moment. Councillor Armstrong has put an amendment through and we haven't accepted that amendment or not.
That's right. So what the question from Councillor, and it's appropriate process, Councillor Dodd said she'd like to add to that amendment to move to put forward 3.2. That was not accepted by one of the movers, so that's not accepted. So Councillor Dodd will then be afforded the opportunity to move that a further amendment, but we will then deal with the amendment as put forward by Councillor Armstrong and Ingram.
So we can deal with, because then there's another one at 15.14 and 15.15 where we have to make a choice. So we can actually do that as separate amendments.
We can do them by separate, or you can move. You can say these are my ones.
So once we accept, if we accept the two people, then we can then have another amendment.
Yeah, that's right. So what will happen is you vote upon the amendment, and so then what will happen is, instead of there being the numeral 3 at 4.5 and 4.8, it will be the numeral 2, being the 2 days. Then you can move a further amendment, and we can work through any issues. So all councillors can highlight the areas where the choice is and what their recommendation is, and then it's voted that it becomes one or the other. And then ultimately, we will then vote upon the whole motion. Unfortunately, I know this sounds very tedious. However, that's what we must do, because it is your decision. Staff couldn't put forward because you need to vote on which it is.
Just make a comment through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager. I presume, and I know you should never presume, but with the induction courses and yourself handling some of those with new councillors, I'm sure that all councillors, and especially new councillors, have been made aware that they have the availability of senior staff at any time during work hours to raise their concerns or ask any questions and seek clarifications on any matter that is coming before council. They don't have to actually wait till the day. They've got I suppose that's been expressed to the councillors.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it has, and obviously where there is a decision point, we must come before you for that decision.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. So Two hands are up. Just two more, I think. Councillor Flannery, I think I saw your hand first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, a couple of comments and a couple of questions. In relation to 3.1 versus 3.2, I would strongly support 3.1. I think having random council meetings leads to mayhem for councillors and the community. That said, there are occasions where it's identified by staff that there are significant clashes or problems, and there have been instances where council has moved, albeit rare, the ordinary meeting for specific purposes, or there is the option of holding EGMs where needs be to deal with certain matters. So I would strongly support 3.1. I've always been concerned about pre-meeting briefing sessions to the extent that they're used for good reason to inform councillors of matters that might require further explanation. But noting point 3.37, it says councillors must not use pre-meeting briefing sessions to debate or make preliminary decisions on items of business they're being briefed on. It's always been my concern that staff try and background, or I don't know that influence is the right word, but try and form an opinion at those briefing sessions before an item goes up for debate. And the general public don't get to see the agenda or the tone of pre-meeting briefing sessions, and then, but the debate on the floor of a council meeting is quelled by virtue of the pre-meeting sessions. And I think if they're going to be used as a basis of informing councillors, there needs to be reference or minutes kept, and perhaps they should be published as part of council meetings. Because
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, for your points. Can we come back now to...
I haven't finished yet, actually. It says...
Could you just keep it to the conversation that we're having? Thank you. Back to 3.4. Is that what you... 3.34?
Could you just restate your comment?
I just made clear the point that you were talking about. So it's 3.34. Well, it's 3.33 through to 4.1. The other question is, it says 3.34 in particular, pre-meeting briefing sessions to be held in the absence of the public. And then in black it says currently included. So when it says currently included, that means it's currently included. Could the General Manager please state whether the exclusion of the public is currently the case or not the case?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the exclusion of the public is the case. Exclusion of the public to the briefings. As articulated, the briefing sessions are to inform what is coming before council, for council to ask questions, ask more information, so council staff have the opportunity to put further information within the report. Any questions or concerns that councillors have, we can investigate that and can form part of the report for the public, but no views are formed at that meeting. You recall that I have often asked councillors that no decisions are to be made at briefing. It is an information session for a discussion, so you're informed and ask more questions, so that you're not just presented with a paper cold.
That's right, but I've heard it more than once during a council meeting when I either haven't attended a briefing session or I don't believe there's been a conclusion, and the comment has come back, well, that was the tone accepted at the briefing session.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. I'm not sure I agree with that, but thank you for your comments.
I'm not asking you. I'm not asking your opinion, Madam Mayor. I'm telling you what the case has been.
In your view. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Stadmiller, you have a point. Councillor Stadmiller, you have a point.
Are there minutes kept? Are there minutes kept?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to speak against the amendment. I think the status quo of having three opportunities to speak about something is fine. I don't think that sitting around for a further 5 or 10 minutes is going to injure anyone too much. And we have had some issues of late where people have spoken, a number of them, about important issues, including the recent Apollo one, 2 or 3 for, 2 or 3 against. I have to agree with Councillor Flannery that hypothetically the councillor briefings could be seen as being somewhat coercive. Everyone may not agree with that, but his comment about the fact that the tone of the meeting is used to explain the direction which council goes with the business paper. Often I feel the same. So I'd actually like to see the briefing notes come from the council workshops and be given to councillors. I've asked for it before through a notice of motion and been shot down. They do it at other councils, including Cootamundra-Gundagai over the border. But I urge councillors to vote against the current amendment and put this through as is. We can come back and deal with it at the end of the exhibition and submission period anyway. So we're only sitting here and we're going to deal with one piece at a time and be here all night otherwise.
All right, thank you. Now, I think we'll put the amendment, and the amendment is in front of you.
The amendment, just for everyone, we are not voting on the whole of the document. We have 4.5 and 4.8. The motion before you is to reduce the 3 items of business and 3 speakers to 2 items of business and 2 speakers permitted. So
we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment? Those Ingram, Armstrong, Piper and Councillor Flannery? No. Those voting against the amendment?
Those against it is Councillor Foreman,
Fitzgerald,
Rolls,
Hewson and Dodd.
The amendment is lost.
All right, which takes us back to...
Excuse me, and Mackie against.
Oh, pardon me, and Councillor Mackie. The amendment is lost. So takes us back to the original recommendation. But Councillor Dodd, did you?
I would like to move that we include item 3.2. My intention, my thinking would be that we would do it for a year, that it wouldn't be done meeting about. It just would allow that flexibility, and I would think that if most councillors would not want it to be flexible, they'd want it to be a regular time all the time, and so that is a way that you would have control over that in the future anyway, so that even if we pass 3.2, we could just have it at the beginning of the year. For the next 12 months, our meetings will be on Wednesday at 4:30. And I just think it's a little bit easier to then change for the following year. Or not.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? I'll second it. Councillor Ingram.
I'll just speak against that amendment, Madam Mayor. And I think I said it before that the way it's currently set, there's an old saying about if something's not broke, I don't know why you need to try and fix it. It works very well the way it's done now. We are creatures of habit. Everyone knows when the council meetings are held, what day they're held, what time they're held. So do the community. The community are aware if they want to speak in public forum at this stage what they need to do. I think playing with measures like that is unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Anybody else like to speak for or against? All right. If that's
Can I make a question?
Thank you.
Submissions on the draft document can be made by anybody, including councillors?
Correct.
Thank you.
Let's go back to the amendment, which is item 3.2 be included and 3.1 be deleted or excluded, whichever you like. Those in favour, if you'd like to raise your hand. Those against?
Ingram, Foreman, Fitzgerald, Bowles, Hewson, Pfeiffer, Mackie, Flannery, Armstrong. Councillor Stadmiller, were you for or against 3.1 or 3.2?
I was voting alongside Councillor Dodd, I thought.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, just missed you on the screen. Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller.
So do we now need to vote for 3.1, or is it just assumed that 3.1 is included because it says either or?
So what we have now is the amendment was moved just as the previous amendment. So the amendment for 4.5 and 4.5 was lost, so it is 3 and 3. And then you've made a decision now to go with Council has made the decision to put 3.1 on public exhibition. So then ultimately you will then vote on all of the matters to put it on public exhibition. I will stress this is for public exhibition, and should we receive any submissions, we'll bring it back to Council for your vote.
Let's get it done.
All right, thank you, councillors. Councillor Flannery, your hand is up.
Yes, Madam Mayor, in line with comments on 3.3, I'd like to move an amendment that minutes and discussion 3.39 minutes and discussion points of councillor briefing sessions be recorded and sent to councillors prior to the ensuing council meeting.
Just wait while Deirdre gets it up on screen for us. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Ingram. Questions?
I have a question. If we don't make any decisions at those meetings and the agenda is already available, then won't the minutes just be the agenda?
No, because there's often there is discussion, which is a question and answer session. So it could be as simple as questions from councillors Flannery, Ingram, Armstrong, Dodd, blah, 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 regarding appropriateness and answers required so that at least we have some basis. I read when you read the last briefing session, the minutes go out and it says detail to be provided. Almost every agenda item, detail to be provided at the briefing session. So for those of us who couldn't make it because of work commitments, we have no detail on what was discussed. So to that extent, I'm either in a vacuum as to what the staff thought. If staff are to give presentations, well then surely they can, as a minimum, be provided to those who can't make it afterwards.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
It's a very pertinent point, Madam Mayor, that Councillor Flannery brought up at the recent workshop we held. Some information is provided to the councillors basically on the day, what's going to be presented at the workshop, but only half the information is provided. Then the rest comes up on screenshots. And after the last workshop, I had to request that that information be sent out to all councillors. I think if it's going to be done, it should be done to all councillors, whether they can make the workshop or not. It should be sent to them. Then they can see any questions that are asked and the response by staff, which needs to be factual and not opinions or opinionated. And that's very important that all councillors are on the same page and everyone has the same full understanding of what staff have said in relation to the facts of the matter being dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. If there's no more discussion, Councillor
Yeah, just to comment about Councillor Ingram's comment there. I would expect the staff that we have employed are experts, and there are some things which are not black and white, and using their expertise to give us their best judgment, their best opinion, will be part of what we've hired them for.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Stadmiller.
Sorry, can I suggest to Councillor Dodd that she accept Councillor Flannery's foreshadowed amendment or whatever it is as part of her amendment to quicken up the process, because it makes common sense and it's part of the code anyway, where all councillors are meant to be afforded access to the same information to carry out their duties.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Thank you. No.
So just a procedural, Councillor Stadmiller, the motion that Councillor Dodd put forward was lost. You will now be voting on an additional amendment proposed by Councillor Flannery, which is the addition of 3.39, which is now on screen.
Thank you for that clarification. I think if we've had enough discussion, we'll put it to the vote. Those.
Excuse me,
Councillor. Oh, Councillor Foreman. Pardon me.
Is that me?
Yes, Councillor.
Councillor Mackie, and then Councillor Foreman.
Yeah, sorry. Could you just read out what's on the screen, because I can't see the screen from here. If you could just read it out before we vote on it.
Yes. The amendment that Council add 3.39, briefing information to be recorded and sent to councillors before the next meeting of Council. And it's been proposed by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Ingram.
Thanks very much.
Okay, and Councillor Foreman, did you have a comment?
I couldn't see it either, sorry.
Oh, thank you. All right, let's put this to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment, if you'd like to raise your hand.
Ingram, Foreman, Hewson, Piper, Dodd, Mackie, Stadmiller, Flannery, Armstrong.
And those against?
Fitzgerald, Rolls.
All right, the amendment is carried. Thank you, councillors. So that brings us back to this draft code of meeting practice.
One more.
Councillor
Because
Dodd.
it says councils may 1514 and 1515. Councils may use either clause 1514 or clause 1515. And I would like to propose that we go with the one that's currently included, 1515. I would like to make an amendment.
1515?
Page 59.
Page 59. And that's all chairpersons of meetings of the council and committees, starting that. That's correct.
Madam Mayor, could you read the amendment, please?
Yes, the 1515, which is the one that Councillor Dodd wishes to go with, isn't it? All chairpersons of meetings of the council and committees of the council are authorised under this code to expel any person other than a councillor from a council or committee meeting for the purposes of section 10(2)(b) of the Act. Councillors may only be expelled by a resolution of the council or the committee of the council.
That's currently in our code, isn't it, that one?
Yes.
I voted that in last time.
Yes, that's in our code at the moment. Just a moment, councillors. The General Manager's just checking on something for us. Mr. General Manager, you want to say something?
No, that's fine.
No, that's fine. All right, so we have before us the amendment that Council A 1514 being deleted from the policy, and that 15.15, B, be included. All chairpersons of meetings, I read it before. Do I need to read it again for people? No. All right, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Who moved it? Is that what you want to know? Councillor Dodd, and seconded? Who was it said? Ingram. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Ingram, Foreman, Fitzgerald, Morrell, Hewson, Polter, Dodd, Armstrong, Flannery.
And those against?
Mackie.
And Councillor Stadmiller? Councillor Stadmiller. Thank you. That amendment is successful. So, Mr. General Manager, we come back to the recommendation.
Yeah, so this point, councillors, with no further amendments being put forward or the resolution of choices, what you will have is that the code of meeting practice will go out as is, and so where it says it's currently included, it will be included, and where, particularly in relation to the audio link, the many amendments as it's through, it allows for audio visual links as appropriate. It is somewhat constrained for meetings. There are some criteria, however, it is in the mix. So if there's no further discussion on that, you're putting this out. Should we receive submissions, it will come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I think we will put it to the floor. Oh, before we do, very last one.
There is actually another choice where it's 8.1 and 8.2, and it says the order of business. It's about the order of business, and councils must use either clause 8.1 or 8.2. 8.1 is that the general order of business is fixed by resolution, or that the general order of business is what's in there at the moment.
Voted on this?
Sorry?
Didn't we just take a vote on it?
No, 8.1, 8.2.
Yeah, so look, the councillor Dodd is right. Currently included is we have a current order of business as listed on page 56 of your agenda. There is the choice that the general order of business can be fixed at the beginning of each meeting rather than have the set structure. Currently we have a set structure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as a point of order, we just voted. If there's needs further clarification, we either have to rescind the decision, and we've actually taken a formal vote of council. If we've missed something, then we need to rescind it, or we need to vote formally to reopen it.
It actually, through you, Madam Mayor, we actually haven't voted to put it out yet. We have a mover and a seconder. However, this further point has been raised, so it's still procedurally correct.
It was raised just before I was to put it to the meeting.
I don't agree. We all put our hands up. 3 people voted against it. The rest voted for it. Now, if we've made a mistake in not appropriately dealing with an agenda.
No, councillor. That was for the amendment. This is.
No, I don't agree. We voted on the amendment, then we voted to accept the.
No. Councillor Ingram, you have a very good memory. Would you like to say?
Councillor Flannery, I'll have to disagree with you on that point. But the last vote we had was on keeping order at meetings, either 15.14 or 15.15, and that was the last show of hands we just had, which just preceded. Madam Mayor was just about to put the whole item, and Councillor Dodd has wished to move a clarification on 8.1 and 8.2. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Ingram.
A question, is the current order of business 8.1 or 8.2? It's
8.2 is the current order of
Thank you.
business, Councillor, through you, Madam Mayor.
And my amendment would be that we adopt 8.2, which is what's currently there.
All right. So your amendment is that we adopt 8.2, which is the current one. Okay. Do you have all right, Councillor Foreman? Any more discussion? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We're going back to 12.5, the draft code of meeting practice. And the draft code of meeting practice.
Yes, we've had Ingram and Hewson, Ingram moved and Hewson seconded. So now with the amendments and both voted for and against, and we now have a code of meeting practice for you to vote upon for public exhibition.
Okay. Councillors, put it to you. Those in favour, if you'd like to raise your hands. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. All right, moving on. To, yes, 143. I was just waiting for this to come up. 12.5, 2208, the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, or ARIC, Charter for Hilltops Council. And
move the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Second by Councillor Flannery. Any comments? No.
Just one question, if I could, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Can the minutes and the business paper for the ARIC meeting be provided to councillors via the Big Tin Can hub, please?
Yes, absolutely, through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I believe that was the case for the last committee. I'd like to think it could continue on for the current committee.
Yes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you. Councillor Armstrong. All right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, if you'd like to raise. Thank you.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We move to 12.6, 2209, development application stats for March 2022. The recommendation is in front of us. Council receive and note the status reports for DAs and complying development certificates as at 31st of March 2022. Do I have a Councillor Stadmiller, mover, a seconder?
I'd just like to declare a non-significant pecuniary interest too in two items.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Can I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald. Any comments, questions? If that's the case, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Councillor Stadmiller, is your hand up?
He's abstaining.
Oh, you're abstaining. Pardon me, you are too. Thank you. So it's unanimous. Thank you.
Do we usually have the minutes up because it's back on whatever we stopped at before? Thank you.
All right, moving on, we're up to 12.7, 2210, application to modify development consent, DA 2020-0250, FAIRBURN QUARRY, and it's to do with the anniversary date. The recommendation is before you.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Any discussion, questions? No, then I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you once again. So we will move on to 12.8, 2211. DA 2021-0334, alterations and additions to an existing residential dwelling, swimming pool, ancillary building, a pergola or pergola, and tree removal, 124 Meads Lane, BOOROWA. The recommendation is before you. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Second. Thank you, Councillor Hewson. Any discussion, questions?
Just a question. I'm reading through the documents. I was unable to clarify whether this is going to remain a private home or be used in some other, possibly commercial way. Can anybody inform?
Thank you, Director of Planning. I think it has to do with the size of the renovation.
Can you hear me there? The application's only for extensions to the existing home, so as far as we're aware, it will remain a dwelling.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, in which case I will put it before you. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you.
Page 235.
236. Oh, pardon me. Oh yes, I'm on the page. Here you are. I'm on the page already. 12.9, 2212. This is to do with the residential subdivision at 46 Wombat Street, Young. And the recommendation is that Council grant consent to development application, DA 2022. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconded by Councillor Stadmiller.
With a question.
With a question, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm just unsure. We've got an LEP before us, which I thought was in effect now, and the minimum lot size was 800 square metres. This is asking for proposed lot sizes of 559 and 452. Can I just have that explained, please?
I'll pass that to the Director of Planning, the Acting Director of Planning.
Okay, there's two questions in that. The first one is about the LEP. This one is assessed under the Young LEP because the Hilltops LEP is yet to be endorsed by the Minister. Under the LEP, there is the ability to relax that requirement and go to minimum lot size based on some criteria which have been met by the applicant, and therefore we've recommended approval.
Can I have a question, follow up to that one?
Yes.
If it was under the Hilltops LEP, would it be approved?
I haven't got that LEP in front of me right now, but I'd say in general, because the lot size is actually that smaller under the LEP in some cases, it shouldn't be much of an issue at all. If anything, it should support, particularly on a small lot and a corner lot like this, it's actually probably a better outcome and better use of our services in town.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? If not, I will put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Those in favour are Armstrong, Mackie, Stadmiller, Foreman, Fitzgerald, Rolls, Hewson, Piper, Dodd.
Those against?
Those against, Ingram, Councillor Ingram.
Thank you.
Councillor Flannery, were you a for or against 12.9?
I had my hand up for, but it didn't seem to get recorded.
I'm sorry that you fell off the screen for whatever reason, we don't know. So thank you, Councillor Flannery. You'll be recorded as for. Thank you.
Thank you. We go to 1210, 2213, DA 2022, it's a dwelling alterations and additions and shed at 80 JUGIONG Street, BOOROWA. I need a mover. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. A seconder? Oh, Councillor Stadmiller. Right. Any questions, comments? Anyone like to speak to it? Or
I'd like to make a point of clarification, actually. One of the recommendations is that there's a shed at the back. If you have a look at your map on page 306 or your plan, there's a shed at the back. When you read what our council officers have looked at as regards to not complying, they want to move, the applicant wants to have only 0.9 of a metre between the boundary and the fence, and council require 3 metres. And one of the complaints was that maybe at that shed would have gates opening onto public footpath. There will be no gates there whatsoever. The boundary will go at right angles and touch the shed, and there will be a roller door there, not gates. So the applicant is asking, if possible, can he have 0.9 of a metre instead of 3 metres?
Director of Planning, would you like to talk to that? Thank you.
That's correct. That is one of the criteria look at, is if there's going to be gates opening out onto the street, but it's not the only criteria. The other criteria relate to general setback requirements under the DCP, and the minimum setback is 3 metres. So even with gates or otherwise, it still doesn't comply. But there is the opportunity for the applicant to put a new proposal in or some more information in through a separate process. That to be reconsidered if he has more information on how he is going to address the street.
So as it stands now, if we vote on this now and it's approved, he can still go ahead and then make application to the council later on for see if he can get the 3 metres.
If further information is provided by the applicant through that process, yes.
But we can vote tonight on permission to go ahead with the actual renovations of the house.
Yeah, the conditions as is, the only impact on what was proposed is the actual setback for the shed, not the house.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any more questions? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 1211, and that's the Regional Road Repair Program grant. The advice is that council received and note the report, adopt the proposed project allocations for the Regional Road Repair Program 2022-23 as presented, and delegate authority to the GM to execute all necessary documentation associated with the Regional Road Repair Program 2022-2023. Do I have a mover? Councillor Stadmiller, a seconder. Councillor Foreman. Any questions?
Question, Madam Mayor. Have we got the gravel ready to do any repairs?
I'll defer to the Structure Department.
Through Madam Mayor, the question probably relates generally. The work that we have that we got proposed and before you with the repair program is normally stabilisation works, where we're doing in situ stabilisation. We use the bulk of the material that's already sitting in the pavement for it, and we do a top up. But yes, we have reasonable reserves in place at the moment to be doing other works at the current moment.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question. It relates to the traffic volume, or AADT figures they probably are, potentially, for the 2 sections of Rugby Road. I'm just wondering where the other 810 vehicles go, given that there's a traffic count of 1,010 vehicles at one end and only 200 at the other. I would have thought that perhaps Millvale Road, east of Burthon, would have had a marginally higher traffic count than that part of Rugby Road. But could I just get some commentary on those traffic volumes, please?
Through Madam Mayor, the higher section that's tabled on Rugby Road is very close to BOOROWA Township. So you are picking up also movements that are going to Frogmore and up to Warringla Dam area as well. The second project is 30 kilometres out, so out towards Rugby. So you're getting a lot of drop off with traffic volume, obviously, as you move out of town. So that aligns with what I would see what would happen with those traffic volumes. To make a comparison with Millwall Road, for example, probably not a fair comparison because we do have through traffic running through there through to Temora and out to those busy farming areas.
Councillor Stadmiller and then Councillor Flannery.
I'll be brief, Madam Mayor, but we're on regional roads, so it has to be brought up. There's an enormous amount of limestone trucks that are going towards Gaylong, hitting the Gaylong crossroads, going down the Burley Griffin Way, turning right, going up the Boorah Road and out to the Lachlan Valley Way that way. Can someone please explain to me what is wrong with the $7 million road that we built and why it's not being used?
Through Madam Mayor, currently the pavement works have not been completed on the large project on Gaylong Road itself, and I believe there's also other planning matters that have to be resolved yet before they can actually run on that section of road as well. So technically they don't have consent to run, so that's why they're running around Cunningar, sticking to the regional road and state highway networks, keeping off our road network, so they're not damaging ours.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery. Councillor Flannery, we can't hear you. Could you put your mic on?
Sorry, it was actually along the lines, part of it was along the lines of Councillor Stadmiller's. Why is Gaylong Road not being used? So it's been answered that it's not finalised. What work hasn't been finalised? Do we have any idea of what volume? Because look, the material going along Cunningar Road is immense, albeit that it is a regional road. What hasn't been completed on Gaylong Road that's prohibiting the transport of that material along it? The other question is, what is the costs associated? It says financial implications. Costs associated with proposed works are outlined in the report. Where's our co-contribution coming from? I'm assuming it's out of existing budget.
Through Madam Mayor, the works outstanding on Gaylong Road principally involve the intersection work with Ubindal and Gaylong Road, and they're programmed for from May. As far as the volume, and I imagine you're talking about the tonnages that are running up from out of the mine out on Cunningar Road, we don't have that. We don't have that intel from the mine at present. In regard to the costs associated, or the 50-50, that is coming out of block grant. But that's how our ratio has always worked from the repair. It's 50% from the repair program, 50% block grant to fund projects.
Thank you. And a last question, I think. Oh, Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment to start with. I have struggled with the traffic numbers from the Rugby 1010 to 2560 on the Millwall Temora Road, but I'll take that as being correct. I am surprised that there was no roadworks deemed necessary or bad enough to be done in the Harden area currently, and expending of this funding. And I would just point out and make sure that everyone's well aware of the funding in the two areas, and I don't doubt that the road, and I've been over the road, it needs some work on it down near Rugby, all right. But they just need to take on board and make sure they understand that that's 55.41% of this funding, just in round figures, that's been allocated to that area. So when we talk about being fair and smaller communities being looked after, I just might refer people back to this particular regional road repair program grant. Thank you. Just on that note, when you go to the benefit cost calculator, did staff go from the Millwall Road, where they've got that yellow little drawing there now, actually a bit further along that road till you come into the next section towards Temora joining? And did they assess that road? I've travelled it recently. So was it looked at?
Through the Mayor, the section that we're looking at is purely the section that has not undertaken any work onto it. So it's about a kilometre this side of Berthong Road intersection.
Did they have a look at the section further along?
I can't comment whether they looked at it, but for the intent for this project, what was scrutinised was that section that's starting to fail.
That's where I have the issues when it comes to council at this stage. As reported, it was received on the 17th of March, this notice, and as mentioned in the workshop that it took a full month, 4 weeks, before councillors were notified of what staff had put into the business paper for us to tick off or approve. I think we need to probably improve our areas around that. I think there's a number of areas that could have been looked at, and as I said, I agree with the rugby section of road does need doing. It is very, very bad. But I think the councillors need to be presented with some more options in a more timely manner, rather than having it put in front of you a week before you're expected to make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No more. Oh, Councillor Fitzgerald. Pardon.
Yeah, just a question of clarification for my own benefit, elucidation. I wonder if you could clarify for me how you determine the benefit cost ratio.
Through Madam Mayor, that's a very good question. It is a calculator we are provided by the state. So there is a lot of hidden cells and hidden calculations and algorithms that we're not privy to. It is strong on traffic volumes, which is why the VCR way out at Rugby is a lot lower than the others. It is a new calculator that we're used to. We're used to an older one which wasn't so sensitive to traffic. It's just interesting now that this is the second VCR that we play with in grants, and it's driven by traffic. So of course, you've got a higher volume around Wagga, you're going to get an excellent VCR.
So the implications of 1.27 versus 0.25 is a better number?
Well, it's a better number as long as it's positive. It's a good thing. If it's a negative, you do have a problem. So
okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Crisp. If there are no more questions, I'll put the recommendation to the floor. Those in favour? And against? Councillor Mackie, were you for or against? I didn't. We can't hear you.
I had my hand up for 4.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm right in saying that was unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to 12.12, 2215, waste consultation. And the recommendation is that Council receive this report and note the outcome of consultation. Can I have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And thank you, Councillor Hewson. Anybody, any questions, comments? Councillor Stadmiller first, followed by Councillor Armstrong. Thank you.
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, over the Easter period, the Harden transfer station was shut whilst Boorah and Young were open. I just can't fathom how that's possible that out of the 3 large communities, Harden is neglected in that way. Obviously, the smaller ones weren't open either, which is equally as poor but difficult to do when there's public holidays. But we really need to, on an Easter long weekend, have a facility in a large town the size of Harden open, and sort of have the justification that it's always been done that way isn't good enough. We need to look at it, I think, and make sure that next year it's open.
Thank you. Councillor Stadmiller? No comments? Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just an observation in regards to the number of submissions received. I think this is particularly poor. I don't believe that Council really can use those figures. 48 written submissions out of a population of conservative population estimate of 18,000 in Hilltops equates to about 2.5 thousandths of 1%. So if 2.5 1,000ths of 1% are determining the direction for the other 99.9%, then I can assure you this whole consultation process has been a waste of time. The other point I'd make is that relevant Facebook comments, I don't know what relevant Facebook comments are, because in the main, subscribers to that particular service could be anywhere in the world. So I don't really know that that they're relevant simply because they're made on Facebook. I would think a written submission is far more relevant. I would very much like council to re-engage with the community, or attempt to engage with it, because it doesn't appear as though it has engaged very successfully with this consultation process, and that any directions that council may draw from 48 submissions, 2.5 1,000ths of 1%, are potentially incorrect based upon statistics. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure to comment on that, on very pertinent comments, may I say.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we did have those submissions. The comment around relative Facebook comments is some of them were saying they were responding to the waste consultation, and they spoke about street lighting, and that's where we sorted out those comments that don't actually directly refer to the waste consultation. We have also engaged with some community groups, and we will be going out and speaking directly to the community groups. The advert of the consultation was extensive, and that's what we got back. We're still going to go and engage with some of the community members, because they, after the consultation process closed, requested that staff visit them, and we will be doing that in the near future.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, the recommendation is that council receive this report and note the outcome of the consultation. So what's the outcome of the consultation? I mean, what are decisions have been made, have they?
The outcome is the consultation and what people flagged, and really what that paper is just flagging is that most of the comments was made around the villages and the village tips that we need to go back and do some more. There is no decision required in that paper. It was merely to give councillors a heads up on what the consultation process delivered.
Perhaps better wording might be feedback of the consultation, but I support Councillor Armstrong. I think, consistent with the LEP process, we need to go out and actually have specific workshops and provide detail as to what the intentions are, which really is to close some of the tips and to increase the fees and charges. I mean, that's what the report is all about. And I don't believe we have, I said this beforehand, that I don't believe we've actually engaged. I think my comment going back 6 months ago was it's been sitting on our books for 3 or 4 years and we've done nothing about it, and I don't think we've achieved anything yet.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Armstrong. Ingram, pardon me, Ingram.
We're going to have to get that straight.
I agree with you. I'm down to one, I think. Am I right? Down to one?
That's Ingram.
Mark Flanders, I think.
Yeah. True. In regard to the waste and going to the villages and consultation, yes, it looks like it'll have to be redone. As just mentioned, it's been going on for 3 or 4 years in the former council, and this councillor's in the room here now, and on Skype, who attended meetings in every village of Hilltops. And the number one issue was always waste and the tips. And we spoke to them that these processes would be put in place and would be resolved. The only comment that I made that was the same at every village I went to is the only one thing was positive that would happen. And that doesn't matter which way we went to go about it, it would cost them more money. And I told them that then, and nothing's changed. And that'll be factual. It's just a matter of informing them now what's the best way of going about changing the present system, because the present system doesn't work.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham. Would you like to make any more comments? Thank you. All right, I think that...
Madam Mayor, just one question, if I could, please.
Yes.
Just in regards to the budget is well behind schedule, and a very large part of the general fund component is the domestic waste management charges that relate to our waste operations. I'm just wondering whether the speed with which this project is moving forward is likely to have an adverse impact on our ability to produce a meaningful budget for our domestic waste charges for the next financial year. If I can get some comment from the General Manager in that regard, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. We are scheduling for workshops early in May, so in the next few weeks, to start working through the budget items as it currently stands, and those workshops hopefully will answer some of your questions. As incorporated in your question is the whole waste process. I don't believe we'll be able to make large inroads into the cost/fee structure of the waste because of the very thing that we've been talking about, the consultation with the community. We have an existing structure that costs, I know this sounds obvious what it costs, and we are burdened with that. When I say burdened as in it's instilled, we identified through the waste strategy that we needed to review the way in which we deliver these services, the frequency, the number of facilities, and that is an ongoing process. So I don't believe we'll be able to make large inroads into those costing structures other than looking at what it costs us now and bringing that for discussion with you councillors and then public exhibition on those costs.
But the progression to date is not likely to be an impediment to the budgeting process for next year. Is that what you're saying?
The budgeting process is continuing with the information that we have to hand and the decisions of council as it currently is. Also in that mix, we need to finalise the workplace change process before we start onto those other elements.
Thank you.
Sorry, just quickly, do we have a timeline around how long we think this waste strategy will take? Would there be a rough, are we talking 3 months or 6 months or?
Oh, look, I believe it, as we've articulated, we went out through just a consultation process where we advertised and put forward surveys, etc. As we said, there was a small response relative to the population size, and so going back and meeting with people and having those discussions, it will take as long as it takes. So unfortunately, I can't give a definitive answer, but obviously we want to move towards a structure that is sustainable and affordable. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Flannery, your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I think consistent with the policy that Councillor Armstrong moved regarding community engagement, I think I'd like to move an amendment. So add an agenda. We'll add a part B to the recommendation because I think this is going nowhere otherwise. So part B, I think, should be that staff provide a report to the next council meeting with a detailed outline of further community engagement, including workshops and village meetings to advance the waste. I don't know the waste.
To the progression of the waste strategy, maybe.
Waste strategy. That's progression of the waste strategy.
We'll just wait for the minute secretary to type that up, and then she'll share the screen. So it's not support for the progression. It's also Councillor Flannery.
I can't see that.
We're just about to share the screen.
I'll read it.
And the part B is that, so also that at this point I will ask, one, does that encapsulate your intent, Councillor Flannery, or more detail?
No, I would like a time note that staff supply a report to the next council meeting of a detailed to provide a next council meeting a detailed outline of further community engagement through workshops and village meetings to progress the waste strategy.
Could I foreshadow that and give maybe 2 months, maybe a little bit longer?
I'm simply asking, well, you can foreshadow a change, but I'm simply asking that we put in train. It's not that hard. It's all it's saying is that these are the workshops that need to be held and the community engagement and when they're going to do it. So we actually have some hard timelines in place. This is not about saying what will happen. It's about going out to the community with set dates. So we put a plan in place.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Just from a procedural point of view, Councillors Fitzgerald and Hewson, you as the mover and seconder, are you happy for the suggestion of Councillor Flannery for this to form part of the motion? If you're not, Councillor Flannery would need to move that as an amendment, but we don't need to do that if you are satisfied, yourself and Councillor Hewson are. So Councillor Hewson is satisfied and Councillor Fitzgerald, so that just adds to it, so we don't need to do a amendment. It becomes the motion. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Flannery, can you make sure that that is the correct wording that you would like?
Would you like it read out, Councillor Flannery?
No, I can see that on the screen. I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Flannery. Madam Mayor.
So we have before us the motion that we receive a report, note the outcomes of the consultation, and staff supply a report to the next council meeting of a detailed outline of further community engagement through workshops and community meetings to progress a waste strategy. Can I call for those in favour?
Just one question, if I may, Mayor. Just, I would think that is it Councillor Flannery's intention that this is supplemental to the waste community consultation plan, or is this an assessment of the performance of the waste community consultation plan?
I missed the first part of that, Councillor Armstrong. Sorry, I just didn't hear it.
I guess what I'm asking is the report, is that to be an assessment of the efficacy of the waste community consultation plan, or is it to be pertinent to it to expand the range of consultation?
It's to actually expand the range of consultation, and I guess now that we've got feedback, to go out and say, okay, there's been feedback, albeit limited. We don't believe, consistent with your view, we don't believe it actually fully reflects the changes we're going to make or that we need to make. Therefore, we believe we've got to do wider consultation. Okay, so that there needs to be, I think my view is that there needs to be a council member at each of the next village meetings, and we also need to hold workshops consistent with how we did with the LEP, set down dates for those and advertise it in the community. So it's about, I guess, pinpointing or drilling down in the waste strategy and going to the community with specific meetings and saying, right, we need your feedback and this is what we believe we need to do.
Councillor Flannery, I think in support of your point, on page 340, group meetings, it's said it's intended for staff to meet with groups which have requested a meeting, and I presume you're saying we extend it to the village meeting groups in particular. And I note that it says, with a question mark, do one or more councillors wish to attend such meetings?
Yes,
so that would include.
This is about putting in black and white that we get an agenda and timeline for that to occur.
Yes, I'll take your point, but I think I'm just saying that is already under consideration. That is what I'm saying. Thank you, everybody, for that discussion. We've had a mover and a seconder. We've had discussion, so I will put it to the vote. Those in favour? No. Those against? Councillor Foreman. Thank you. All right, let us move on to 1213, 2216, and that's CPC Renewables and BANGO WINDFARM. And we're asked, Council receive and note the report, and that a councillor is elected as a representative for the BANGO WINDFARM Community Consultative Committee. Yes, is anybody?
I'll move the recommendation.
Oh, pardon me, I'm listening to two conversations here. Yes, do we have a mover? That was Councillor Flannery. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Foreman.
Question. Question.
A question, yes.
Before we elect a representative, as part B, is this has no bearing on any VPA funds or community funds. It's just a consultation committee. It's not about any representative on any fund distribution committee.
That is correct. It has no bearing.
Okay.
We just need to have a representative on the committee. I'll call for.
I'll nominate. I'm already on one wind farm. I'm out that way. I might as well do the other one.
Councillor Piper has offered to be our representative. Any other? No? Councillor Piper, I think it's all in your hands. So thank you. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 1214, 2217, re-establishment of alcohol-free zones in Young.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and seconded by Councillor Stadmiller. Anybody want to make any comments, ask a question? No, we'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors, and I'm sure the police will be very grateful for our support. If we go to 1215, 2218, the Works Report, and the recommendation is before us that Council receive and note the information provided on works completed and works planned. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. A seconder? Pardon me, I didn't see you. Councillor Hewson. Any questions, comments? Councillor Flannery.
You're on mute, Councillor Flannery.
Just a question to the Director or Acting Director. Line marking on Moppety Road, I think there was a reseal done on Moppety Road last year, October, November, and the centre lines haven't yet been marked. Just a question on are they scheduled? I think we noted at the last meeting we moved for a block of line markers. Can we get a date on line marking Moppety Road, please?
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll have to take that on notice, Councillor Flannery.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just the same old bear bug. We go to mowing and slashing, and from the 12th of March to the 8th of April, and it's got it all there. Then it's got towns, routine maintenance and hazard reduction, town approaches and roundabouts. Then it's got the villages and a few villages named. Part B, one of the questions is what is Young or titled as Young Come Under. Does it come under a town or a village, or is there a special item for it? Because nothing was done then, and then we've got works planned from the 9th of April to the 13th of May. Same thing, routine maintenance, town approaches and roundabouts. I note that there's been zero done on Millrow Road since I spoke about our last council meeting. It's a disgrace, like some other entrances to our town. So instead of just going on about it, I would like to see if staff could give us some indication. They got any plans, any regular plans like we do in the other communities in Hilltops? Have the entrances to town mowed and kept neat and tidy and just let Young go wild? Or is it because we're short-staffed or short-funded?
Thank you, Mr. Chris.
Through Madam Mayor, just back to the relation whether it's a town or a village, Young is in the town category for clarification, as is Boorowa and Young. As far as the entrances ways are concerned, we still have a staff shortage that we're trying to amend. It's certainly not our intention to let our entrances go around the Young area. We are trying very hard to try and amend that amongst all the other ovals and other amenity that we do have in the village. But I certainly take your point that we need to spruce those entrance ways up.
Thank you very much for your response, Mr. Crisp. And hopefully when I'm sitting here in a month's time, I don't have to get the same sad response that I got last month and this month, for the sake of the people in Young.
Thank you, Councillor.
I might just clarify that by saying I don't begrudge the other two communities having their entrance looking spick and span, and that's how it should be. My complaint is that 2 out of 3 just isn't good enough on this case.
I do note that Young has many entrances, but I also take your point, Councillor.
I would also
Ingram.
mention that it is responsible for 58% of the revenue also, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Right. The works report, any more questions? Yes.
Just there's
one more from Councillor Flannery.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Just my observation, we don't have any planned works of gravel resheeting in place yet. However, I do think it's pertinent that before we start a gravel resheeting program and following 2 very wet years, that albeit there's no detail, it does note in the report that there's various spraying of weeds and whatnot. Can I make the recommendation to staff that a shoulder spraying program along gravel roads that where resheeting may occur and grading, that they start a spraying program to get rid of the significant grass along the edge, so that when the graders do actually appear on our gravel roads, they're not dealing with a significant burden of organic matter or dry grass. Or the dry grass is already dead, but with the germination, if we can get rid of that, it will make the grader drivers' roads a lot easier and enable the clearing out of the bevel drains along the side of it. Because typically what happens is they decide that the grading and resheeting program should get underway, crews get sent out, and then they've got to deal with a huge burden of weed and matter, and it makes grading very difficult and slow and expensive. So a bit of planning would be very helpful.
Thank you for your observations. And I did note Mr. Crisp was writing down a few notes.
Just one more, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes.
A question to Mr. Crisp in regard to a matter I mentioned also at the last meeting in regard to the work that was done when the gravel roads were evaluated and looked at, and work done presented to the Asset Committee at the time, the committee that we must get back up and running. And I asked, is that what Council is looking at doing with the gravel resheeting, using that as a guide to which parts need doing or prioritising? Has that information been discovered by staff? If not, I can forward it on to you if you like, but I'm just wondering if you've located that information and is it being used?
Through Madam Mayor, field staff are involved with that process of evaluation, and they're certainly using it to align with the gravel resheeting program.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, councillors. We've had quite a discussion. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. All right. 12/16, 22/19, the action summary report. The recommendation that council note the status of the action plan. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dodd, and Councillor Armstrong. Your hand up to be a seconder, I'll take it. Do we have any questions, comments? Councillor Dodd.
I do. I just note that on page 355, where it says about the 2022 federal election campaign, that with the date now for the federal election, that's probably something that needs to be completed very shortly.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Any other comments? If not, then I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Me. Correspondence for information, media releases and Office of Local Government circulars. And the recommendation is that we note the media releases and the circulars and dates of release. Thank you, Councillor Ingram, and seconded Councillor Foreman. Any comments, discussion? If not, those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Oh, almost went past it. Thank you. 12/18, 22/21, committee reports requiring no action, and the recommendation is that council receive and note the minutes of those committee reports that we have in front of us. Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Moved and seconded Councillor Flannery. Any comments, questions? Councillor Flannery, you have a question?
There was a number of items that were raised at the Geelong Progress Association meeting on the 17th of February, and well, I wouldn't say they required action from council, but they required a response. Has council followed up on any of the items? There were stormwater drains. Well, certainly they required action. There were stormwater drains that were blocked and whatnot. I do have them in my notebook. Has there been any response to the Geelong Progress Association regarding some of their concerns? Signs not working down in Ryan Street at the mine funds. There were significant issues with lime dust, tarps not being shut properly, stormwater drains were blocked in the gutters and drains to be cleaned out.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the minutes that you see before you is what we received. So the items you're mentioning are not noted here. We're happy to receive their concerns. If you an addendum from
okay, I'll follow it up with them.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. If there are no more questions, observations, put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. No questions with notice and no notice of motion. So next is confidential matters, and that means the exclusion of the press and public. And can somebody move that we move into closed? Thank you, Councillor Ingram, and seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. 15.2, the request for tender 602 of 2022 Murrumburrah Precinct project. It was resolved the council receive and note the report on the RFT 602 of 2022 Murrumburrah Precinct project. It was also resolved at 15.3, 2224 Graymont VPA question. Council resolved that it receive a note to the report, and B, a report to come back to the May meeting with the exclusion of any confidential information. And it was finally resolved at report 15.4, 2225, Rye Park Wind Farm Voluntary Planning Agreement. The council receive a note to the report on the details of the Rye Park Wind Farm Voluntary Planning Agreement and Community Enhancement Fund. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Well, it's now 6:46 p.m. and our meeting is coming to a conclusion, to the end, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the next ordinary meeting of council, which is scheduled for Wednesday, the 25th of May, 2022, at the Young Chambers, commencing at 4:30 p.m.